I think that the first thing you have to probably do is identify what people term as abuse. Abuse can be termed a multitude of ways.
It's a business, and the bottom line is it's all about the money.
In this country, they're turning horses loose everywhere in this whole United States. They're dying everywhere.
I think that in the equine world, we look at certain breeds and things that they do to animals to get certain levels of performance.
When the rodeo's going on, I let the bull or the horse out, and then when the ride is over with, I open the out gate over here so the horse or the bull can be stripped of its equipment and then put back into the pens in the back. They're not trained. They're just basically untrained horses. They're semi-wild, and I really get upset when people think that rodeo people are cruel to their animals, because it's absolutely the opposite. We care very much about them. Well, the one question that I've been asked 100,000 times is, why do you tie up their genitals? And we don't. This is what goes underneath them. This just goes around their waist. And how can you hurt someone with one of these on there? You can't. It's just impossible. It even kind of upsets me that I have to talk about this time after time after time to people, because it's just kind of frustrating that people this day and age think that we would abuse anything of any kind in any way.
One thing that could happen, you stay behind and then the horse decides to run and you got nowhere to go, so you catch heels and you have quite a chance of stumbling.
My understanding is they are working on trying to stop the use of anabolic steroids in thoroughbreds. That takes a lot of time, and that takes a lot of initiative from that organization, because it's something that's been done for a long time to enhance performance, and they're admitting that it's probably not in the best interest of the animal. People may have heard of walking horses, and that organization is really dealing with a practice that they call soaring, and they're trying to enhance performance in those horses by causing wounds or having wounds on their pastern area and using caustic agents to cause those horses to move differently. I think on a whole, for the general population, we can agree that animals need to be treated well, have medical care, food and water, and be handled in a way that is humane.
3.5 years ago, I had found out that they had rounded up some Mustangs off of the Gila River Indian Reservation, and was so excited because I wanted to adopt a mare that was either in foal or had a foal by her side. I went to the auction, and once I arrived there, I was mortified when I saw the mares and stallions were all going to be slaughtered and you couldn't purchase them. I ended up purchasing the 3 worst foals. Once we got them to a point where they were eating hay and growing rapidly, I decided that I needed to quit my job, and the Love Shack Ranch Horse Rescue was born. As soon as we rescued him, we had to take him in, first clear up the pneumonia, and then we had to have the eye removed. He was rescued in a situation that the owner could no longer take care of him. What has happened is people are losing their jobs and they're losing their homes, and they are not able to take care of their horses any longer, so they are turning their horses in.
When I was in Minnesota, I was called to come out and look at a case that was obvious that the horses were not being cared for. And it's one of those things where it's their word against yours, and he says, I'm feeding these horses, but you ask them to see the food and they're out of food that day, and then you ask them to show you where they're feeding the horses, and it's obvious there's old manure in there and horses have not been in there recently. And then you just try to encourage them to do the right thing. You know, there was nothing wrong with releasing ownership of those animals if he couldn't be responsible for them, but if he was going to keep those animals, we would do periodic checks on those horses, and if they were not being cared for, that charges would be pressed against them, and that individual eventually released those animals.
Hello, welcome to Dunroven Ranch and the home of Dream Chaser PMU Rescue. You can come on in. The dogs are friendly in case you're worried about that. Premarin is a drug created by Ayerst Wyeth and owned by Ayerst Wyeth. It was created in 1942 using pregnant mare urine. Since 1942, pregnant mares have been standing in barns in Canada, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Illinois with pulley systems attached to their bodies. So it is estimated since 42 that over 1 million horses have died to create a drug called Premarin, the third highest selling drug in the world, a drug taken for hormone replacement therapy for women, a drug for which there are many, many healthy alternatives. Women stopped taking Premarin left and right. This resulted in a lot of barns losing their contracts with Wyeth and going technically out of business. This put 20 to 30,000 mares immediately in danger of slaughter. In this round pen, we have some recent rescues from a feedlot in Nevada. A horse, when it's sold at auction and it's bought by what we call a killer buyer, goes into a feedlot. His next step is the slaughterhouse.
A horse is an animal. It's in the Bible. God put it in the Bible that you used him. He was an animal of burden. You used him, you plowed your fields, you rode him. When that was over with, you eat him.
As the slaughter plants in the U.S. are closing or have closed, horses are going to be transported to Canada and Mexico for slaughter.
Canada is very good. They're controlled very good. Mexico isn't controlled all that good.
Double-decker transport has been an issue we've tried to address. They are tractor trailers that actually have 2 levels so that you can transport more animals per tractor trailer load. They have been used to transport horses, typically only horses that are going to go to slaughter.
You can double deck anything. Your saddle horses, your rodeo stock.
If they're horses of value, no one puts horses in that type of a transport for a multitude of reasons.
You can move horses from one state to the other on.
Horses, of course, they're larger than cattle. When they raise their head, they have a metal floor to the second level.
As long as they're not going for kill. But if you're going to send anything to kill, you got to put him on a single deck, straight deck. The economy isn't very good that way. We can't get enough horses on to make it pay.
There are issues that are not in the performance industry that are people in the backyard, and it may just be horses' needs have changed and those people can't adapt to those needs, or they may not be able to financially take care of these animals that they've taken on.
In this country, they're turning horses loose everywhere in this whole United States. They're dying everywhere. Mojave Desert is full of skeletons, thousands of them. They're everywhere there. They just haul them up and turn them loose. That's a cruel deal.
The bottom line is there's always going to be an avenue where people are going to want money for that animal and not going to want to pay for those animals to be euthanized.
Put the plants back in the United States. They're under federal rules, veterinarians, everything right there.
I think that the double-edged sword is shutting down all the slaughterhouses in the U.S. does send those animals to an area where it's absolutely not going to be regulated, and they take a further trip. And if we're worried about the welfare of the animals, this has definitely not been something that was ideal and not well thought out.
It's killed the horse market. from the very top best thoroughbreds there are to the old killers, the old sorry horses that you can't give away anymore. We can't do anything with them. We can kill horses for dog food. We can kill horses for zoos, everything like that. That's completely legal. But you can't kill a horse for human consumption. I don't know. Yeah. It seems funny we can feed an animal, but we can't feed people.
I think the real problem for a horse is when they're viewed as a dollar amount in a production and someone's really basing their living on that animal. I think then that's where we really get into a situation where people have a hard time making what would some people may consider ethical or decisions.
It's a business, and the bottom line is it's all about the money. When we say rescue, we have rescued them. Rescue does not equate with free. We pay $700 per animal to bring them from Canada down. And then we have to outbid the killer buyer. So if the killer buyer is looking at $1 a pound on the hoof, we have to give him more, which is what we do to save them.
I mean, all these good doers and stuff that want to save horses, I feel for them. I love horses. I'm a good horseman. I've been a horseman all my life. But there's something has to be done with these poor old things. They're crippled, the sick, the dying. They get old. They're just like people. And these horse savers that lie about what they're doing. They're saving a horse and trying to take care of them and stuff for one reason. They're selling them to make a profit. When the profit goes out, you watch, they'll sneak them right down there to my pens and I'll be buying them.
We're at the absolute maximum now, and we cannot take in any more. We need to get our numbers down.
I think everybody in the horse industry needs to try to figure out their side of the unwanted horses, and can we think outside the box on how to have less unwanted horses.
There's going to be more and more horses. They're not going nowhere. What are you going to do with thousands and thousands and thousands more horses? They've got to go somewhere.
And every breed, every industry knows how we end up with unwanted horses, whether it's racing or any other type of a discipline.
The more horses, the more the problem. I have to do something about it.
Less unwanted horses means less issues with slaughter and abuse and things of that nature.